The fuel quantity indicators for each plane look identical, except for a different model number at the top of each unit. The ATR-72 should have a model number 2500. But according to the logs, mechanics installed a unit with the model number 2250 instead. Tuninter's maintenance logs offer a valuable clue. But for Panetta, there's no definitive proof that the wrong fuel quantity indicator was installed on the plane.
It could have been a mismatch in that aircraft documentation, so we need to prove that.
There is only one way to know for certain whether Flight 1153 had the right fuel quantity indicator. Go find it at the bottom of the sea.
We need, of course, to recover the wreckage from bottom aircraft to physically see what was the fuel quantity indicator installed on the aircraft.
Not until 3 weeks after the crash do investigators recover wreckage from the sea. The data from the plane's black boxes confirms what the pilots have been saying. There was no warning of low fuel, so there appeared to be enough fuel to make the flight. The black boxes can't solve this mystery. Investigators hope that the tail and front section can. They are hauled aboard a naval vessel from the sea. The moment the cockpit is hauled in, Panetta is there. There's only one thing he wants to see inside.
So when the wreckage was recovered from under the sea and put on the ship deck, I realized that, as a matter of fact, a fuel quantity indicator for an ATR-42 was installed. It was like we found the smoking gun.
The wrong FQI was installed on Flight 1153. Panetta finally has the break he's been looking for. The ATR's fuel quantity indicator collects data from sensors in the fuel tanks and calculates how much fuel is in the tanks. But since the fuel tanks on the 42 and the 72 are a different size, fuel quantity indicators can't be swapped between them. Technicians conduct refueling tests with the wrong FQI installed on an ATR-72. And the results are chilling.
The results show that if you install an FQI type, we say 42, on an ATR-72 aircraft, if I have no fuel into the aircraft in the fuel tanks, with zero fuel, the fuel quantity indicator show me 1,800 kilograms.
Precisely the amount of fuel that the captain reported having when his engines flamed out.
Cockpit fuel quantity 1,800 kilograms.
Investigators conclude, at 23,000 feet above the Mediterranean, the wrong fuel indicator led the crew to believe that they had ample fuel, when their tanks were actually empty.
Engine relight. Negative. We're not doing anything.
The engines could not possibly have been restarted. With hundreds of ATR-42s and ATR-72s still flying, the implications are stark. Could there be other planes flying with the wrong gauge?
The first safety recommendation was to mandate all operators that use ATR-42 and 72 aircraft in their fleet to check whether the right fuel quantity indicator was installed on the aircraft.
Panetta and Caldarelli have uncovered the error that caused both of Flight 1153's engines to quit in mid-air. But the case isn't closed. Standard flight procedures should have uncovered the error before takeoff and prevented the disaster. Captain Garbi's aircraft went in for repairs in Tunisia the night before the crash. The plane's FQI indicated 790 kilograms of fuel in the tank. After the new fuel quantity indicator was installed, it showed that there was almost 4 times as much fuel on board, 3,100 kilograms. The following morning, Captain Garbi noticed that the fuel levels had gone up. He assumed the fuel had been added. But when fuel is added to an aircraft, a refueling slip must be left in the cockpit.
Where is the refueling slip?
The pilot asked to the flight dispatcher where was this refueling slip, but the flight dispatcher was not able to find this refueling slip.
I'll get it to you when you get back from Jerba.
Roger that.
There was no refueling slip because the plane hadn't been refueled. In spite of regulations, the captain left without that vital piece of paper.
There are some standard regulations requiring the pilot to take off only when he is sure about the quantity of fuel.
With the wrong fuel indicator on board and less fuel than he believed, Captain Garbi makes it to Bari, Italy, and tops up his plane for the next leg of the trip to Jerba.
How much fuel are you adding?
400 kilograms.
2,700 total?
Believing he has 2,700 kilograms of fuel on board, Captain Garbi begins his flight to Jerba. If the correct fuel quantity indicator had been installed, the captain would have known that he had only 540 kilograms. Not nearly enough to make the crossing.
Mayday! 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 TUI 1153 requests immediate landing at Palermo. We've lost both engines.
Panetta's investigation comes to a close. He draws up his final report. His colleague, Giuseppe Caldarelli, voices a bold view. Even with no fuel and dead engines, Flight 1153 could have made it to land.
The aircraft was in a position that allowed to reach Palermo.
TUI 1153.
Caldarelli wonders if the pilots did everything they could have to get the plane safely to Palermo.
TUI 1153.
Investigators get some unexpected answers by having seasoned pilots fly the exact same flight with the exact same problems.
Okay, we are now in big trouble because the second engine has gone off, so...
Vincenzo Panetta's investigation into the crash of TuneInter Flight 1153 has uncovered the events that led up to the accident. Now he and Giuseppe Caldarelli need to resolve one question. Did mistakes made by the pilots cost people their lives?
We're not going to make it. Prepare to ditch.
Caldarelli and his team study the plane's specifications and draw a surprising conclusion. Flight 1153 could have been able to glide to Palermo. According to manufacturer data, an ATR is able to glide 3 miles for every 1,000 feet of descent. With the help of the tailwind that day, Flight 1153 could have been able to glide 70 miles to Palermo. The crew might have been able to make it.
Landing gear lever up.
So what had the pilots done wrong? To answer that question, Panetta and Caldarelli recreate Flight 1153 in the flight simulator at the ATR facility in France. Test pilots try to glide an ATR-72 for 70 miles from the altitude at which Flight 1153 lost its second engine.
The simulation was requested to see the range of the aircraft starting from the second engine out.
Double engine flame out, you have to be very aware of the configuration of the aircraft in order to keep as much as possible the altitude and distance to fly before the crash.
Stop! Stop. Engine number 1 is flamed out.